Sometimes history tells us such stories that it feels as if someone has drawn a delicate line between reality and a dream. But today we are going to cross that line and step into a question whose very imagination shakes the foundations of the world. What if a country named Canada had never existed at all? If that great white north, that snow-covered land, that nation of millions of lakes, and that people known for peace, calm, and tolerance, had never been born, what would the world look like? Perhaps many of the lines we see on the world map today would never have been drawn. Perhaps America's strength would have flowed in a completely different direction. Perhaps Europe's wars would have ended differently. Perhaps Russia's empire would have expanded deep into North America. Or perhaps this entire land would have remained untouched for centuries, a barren region deprived of writing its own history. Canada's modern history shows that this region has had a distinct impact on global politics, economy, and culture. But if it had not existed, the entire timeline of human history would have shifted. American independence, world wars, the Cold War, industrial expansion, Arctic exploration, everything would have followed a different path. Think from the beginning. In the 16th century, when European powers advanced toward the New World, both France and England were setting foot in North America. France planted its flag in Quebec, Montreal, and the St. Lawrence Valley, while England firmly claimed the eastern coasts. This rivalry formed the foundation of future Canada. But what if France had never reached this region? What if the icy forests and river-filled lands had never appealed to any power? Then this territory would have remained with Indigenous nations for centuries. And that means America would have had a neighbor that was neither British nor French, but the inheritor of its own thousand-year-old cultures. The Inuit, Cree, Haida, Mohawk, all with their own states, languages, and authority. America's northern border would have depended on tribal diplomacy, and perhaps the United States would never have been able to expand northward. But there is another truth. Canada contains some of the most important natural resources in the world. If Canada did not exist, the question arises, who would control these resources? The world cannot function without them. Oil, gas, timber, uranium, fresh water, all of these are central pieces in the game of global power. If, in the 19th century, Britain had kept this part of North America, relations with the United States would never have been normal. The War of 1812, a conflict of only a few years, could have turned into a permanent Cold War. A powerful British military presence would have remained in the north. From Atlantic trade routes to Arctic shipping lanes, tension would dominate everything. And if France had reclaimed its colonies, then the United States would have been surrounded by a French power. Would the Louisiana Purchase ever have happened? Could Thomas Jefferson have expanded America's geography? Probably not. And if that had not happened, North America might have been divided into three major entities, remnants of the British Empire, a French North, and a United States with limited strength. But in this alternate world, one of the most dangerous scenarios arises: Russia. In the 19th century, Russia did sell Alaska, but it also dreamed of expanding its empire across the Arctic coast. Without Canada, the entire northern region would have been its next natural target. Imagine Russian territory right above the United States, where the Soviet Union would later reach America's border directly. In such a world map, the Cold War would not be confined to Europe. It would burn like a hidden fire in the icy north of America. US cities would live in fear, military budgets would multiply, nuclear silos would be placed along the northern border, and the world could be pushed to destruction by a single wrong move. But alternate realities are not just about war, they change culture too. Canada's bilingualism, multiculturalism, and Indigenous respect created a unique identity in the world. Without Canada, North American culture would be one-dimensional. The French language might never have taken root in the continent. Quebec would never become a cultural city. Niagara Falls would belong entirely to the United States, not be a shared wonder. Cities like Toronto, Vancouver's waterfront hubs, Montreal's art scene, none of them would exist. American culture would also be less diverse. Canada's immigration system has given millions of people a new home. Without that, global human migration would have looked different. The United States might have faced more immigration pressure. Population flows in Europe and Asia might have shifted elsewhere. This world would move in a direction where America lived under immense pressure, uncertain borders, and constant threats. Even its internal politics would change. The conflicts between northern and southern states would include a new element: the northern threat. The American Civil War might have unfolded differently. Its outcome might have been delayed, or the Union might have weakened, perhaps even fragmented into 2 or 3 nations. And then comes the bigger question: how would World War I and II unfold? Canada played a major role in supporting the Allies. Its army, resources, and land strengthened Britain and its partners. Without Canada, German U-boats would have been more successful in the Atlantic. Supply lines would weaken. The Normandy landings might never have happened. The glory of D-Day, which freed Europe, might never have been written in history. Imagine a world where Hitler's power lasted longer, or where World War II's outcome was delayed by years. America would stand alone in the Atlantic Naval War. Britain would not receive Canada's support, and the outcome of the war could be entirely different. By the end of this journey, history reveals a surprising truth. Canada holds quiet strength. It is not a loud country, yet it is a silent pillar of global stability. But our story does not end here, because now comes the moment where the alternate reality opens its next door, and a new twist awaits us. We now enter a world where Canada's absence has created the most powerful vacuum in global politics. A vacuum not only of geography, but of power, resources, and above all, the future. At the start of the 1900s, when the world was undergoing industrial revolution, America had a dire need for energy. But here appears a possibility that shifts the balance of global power entirely. Without Canada, America would have no access to the Arctic. This means it could not influence northern trade routes, nor possess the strategic deep water ports that form the backbone of its modern power. Arctic shipping routes, which are opening more today due to climate change, were strategic dreams in the 20th century. Without Canada, Russia would have full control over them, challenging the United States at every trade and naval route. In this alternate reality, the world's great powers would engage in endless tug-of-war across the frozen Arctic. Now imagine the scene during World War I. When the United States supported the Allies, Canada was a major supply line. Without it, America would stand alone in naval warfare. British military support would weaken. Europe's battlefronts would look different. Wars would last longer. Casualties would be higher. The Treaty of Versailles might never take the shape that redefined global power. Without Canada, a strong voice supporting peace, diplomacy, and cooperation would be missing in the League of Nations. Even in the United Nations, a major soft power would be absent. America would be forced to handle global responsibilities alone, causing more chaos in world power structures. But alternate reality shows another twist. What if this vast region fell into the hands of a rising new power? Perhaps Japan, which was growing rapidly in the early 1900s, would look beyond the Pacific. Perhaps after Alaska, it would aim for the north. Or maybe Germany, which dreamed of expansion during World War I, would seek reach to the icy north. If that happened, World War II would look completely different. Imagine Nazi Germany touching North America. The thought alone is terrifying. There is another reality too. Without Canada, climate change would be far more dangerous today. Canada's forests are among the largest carbon sinks on Earth. Without them, global temperatures would be several degrees higher. Arctic glaciers would have melted much earlier. Sea levels would be several feet higher. Millions of people would be forced to migrate from coastal regions. The world's economy, politics, and society would be in constant emergency. And now we come to culture, identity, and the human story. Without Canada, Indigenous treatment would have been entirely different. Perhaps American policy would have been harsher, and northern civilizations might have disappeared much earlier. The world would lose its cultural diversity. The stories tied to mountains, forests, and rivers, the languages holding thousands of years of heritage, would vanish from history. And now the final and most crucial possibility, an America that never becomes a superpower. One of America's greatest strengths is its secure north. It used its resources for development, not for constant warfare. If the North had been a threat, America would have spent its budget primarily on defense. Education, research, space exploration, and technology would receive less attention. NASA might never exist. The space race might never begin. Humanity might never step on the moon. In the end, when we step back and view the entire picture, we realize that Canada is not just a country. It is a foundational pillar of global balance that prevented the world from falling into chaos. Its presence gave the United States the security it needed to progress. Without it, the world would be harsher, more uncertain, and far more dangerous. And that is the real essence of this story. The seemingly quiet characters of history are often the pillars without which the world cannot stand. Canada is one of those pillars.